Today, we're diving into the life of one of the most provocative, most rule-breaking Zen masters in all of history, Linji Ishuan. His teaching tools weren't quiet lectures. They were shouts, sticks, and absolutely mind-bending paradoxes. And his final lesson? Well, it might just be the most confusing and brilliant of them all.
Okay, so picture this. A great enlightened master is on his deathbed, his students gathered around, and with his very last breath, he says, "That." An insult. It sounds like a declaration of complete and utter failure. What is going on?
So, really, how could this be? Was this a moment of final despair? Or was it something else entirely? To get to the bottom of this mystery, we first have to understand the man himself, a master whose entire life was about shattering our expectations.
Right. So Linji didn't just wake up one day and decide to start hitting people with sticks. No, his radical methods were forged in the fire of his own, very intense, and let's be honest, probably pretty frustrating journey to find the truth. Let's walk that path.
You see, Linji started out like any other monk, just buried in books and scriptures. But he quickly realized they were like recipes. They could tell you about the meal, but they weren't the meal itself. So he went looking for something more direct. And that led him to the legendary and notoriously fierce Master Huangbo. Linji was so all in that he even called out his own master for reading sutures, which, as you can imagine, earned him a few whacks with a stick. Painful for sure, but absolutely crucial for his awakening.
And through all of that, Linji learned one huge lesson. Real insight, the kind that changes you, doesn't come from reading about it. It comes from a direct, unfiltered, and sometimes shocking encounter with reality. This idea would become the absolute core of his own teaching style.
Which brings us to Linji's pretty infamous teaching methods. I mean, when he became a master himself, he basically threw the traditional playbook out the window. He developed a whole toolkit designed to just jolt his students into a state of sudden, direct awareness.
And this is what made him so radical. Think about it. While other teachers were having their students quietly study sacred texts, Linji was using a stick. While they were teaching silent meditation, Linji was using a deafening shout. His goal wasn't to fill your head up with knowledge, it was to shock it empty of all the concepts getting in the way.
Take this legendary story with his master, Huangbo. As Huangbo goes to strike him, Linji doesn't flinch. Instead, he grabs the stick and hits his master right back. Now, this wasn't disrespect. In fact, Huangbo let out this huge booming laugh. In that one moment, he recognized that his student had finally truly gotten it.
So you have to understand, the strike was never about punishment, not at all. It was actually seen as a compassionate act, a tool, really, designed to just shatter the chain of logical thought, to shock a student out of their mental hamster wheel and bring them crashing right into the raw reality of the here and now.
He also loved using paradox to show just how limited our words can be. He once walked up to another master who was giving a lecture and hit him with this classic Zen riddle. The master just sat there in silence. But Linji wasn't satisfied. He called him out, basically demonstrating that some questions don't have a neat, tidy verbal answer, and more importantly, that even silence can be just another intellectual trap if there's no real living understanding behind it.
And this all leads to his most famous, and let's be real, his most startling line, "Kill the Buddha." Now, obviously, he wasn't talking about actual violence. What he meant was you have to destroy any external image, any concept of enlightenment that you're clinging to. Even the holiest ones. True freedom, for Linji, comes from finding that truth inside yourself, not from worshiping some idea of it outside yourself.
So, with all that in mind, the sticks, the shouts, the paradoxes, how does this all lead up to his final moments? Okay, now that we get his methods, we can go back to that deathbed scene and finally figure out what that baffling last statement was all about.
First, there's one key concept we have to get our heads around, the true Dharma I. This isn't some theory or a belief system. It's the living, breathing, direct insight into how reality actually is. You can't write it down in a book. You can't explain it in a lecture. According to Zen, it can only be passed directly from one awakened mind to another.
Okay, so the stakes here are incredibly high. As he's lying there, dying, Linji issues one final command to his disciples. He's basically asking them, all right, who here actually gets it? Who can carry this living truth forward after I'm gone? So his chief disciple, a guy named Sanxing, steps forward, and Linji goes in the ultimate test. If someone comes and asks you about my true Dharma I, what are you going to tell them?
Sanxing doesn't give some long philosophical answer. He doesn't quote a single scripture. He just lets out a huge, powerful shout. A pure, 100% Linji-style response.
And in response to that perfect wordless demonstration of deep understanding, Linji delivers his final line. He calls his enlightened successor a blind ass, and basically declares his entire life's work a failure.
So here we are, right back at the central mystery. How could this possibly be? Was Linji, in his very last moments, really convinced that his successor had failed him? Or is something much, much deeper happening here? And here it is, the beautiful answer. Sanxing's shout was the perfect response precisely because it wasn't an answer. It was a direct demonstration. He proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he had inherited the living spirit of the teaching, not just a bunch of dead words. Linji's final insult was actually his highest possible praise. It was one last, perfect paradox, confirming that the true Dharma I had been passed on. The student had well and truly become the master.
So why on earth should we care about some fiery Zen master from 9th century China? Well, because his rebellious spirit, his demand for authentic, direct experience, it feels more relevant today than ever before. Just look at the parallels. Linji's fight against empty rituals, that's our search for meaning beyond rigid belief systems. His demand for direct, unfiltered experience, that's our modern quest for authenticity and mindfulness. And his command to kill the Buddha, that's a powerful call for us to trust our own inner wisdom over any outside authority telling us what to believe. Ultimately, Linji's message is one of profound empowerment. He's telling us to question everything, to trust our own direct experience of life, to find the truth right here, in this very moment, not in some far-off future. And maybe most importantly, to be the master of your own life, not just a follower.
And that leaves us with one final question. A question Linji himself might have asked you. In a world that is just saturated with opinions, with ideologies, with experts all telling you what you should believe, how will you find and how will you trust your own truth?